Hello friends, welcome to this video. In this video we're gonna make this app which is domain name checker. This application can check if a domain is available or not. Let's try it out. Let me search for google.com. Click on check domain and it says the domain name google.com is unavailable. Now let's add something new. Google check domain. It's also not available. Let's try another domain. My name is .net. Let's check this domain. Yeah, this is available. And just like that, you can check for any domain with any extension. Let's change this one to IO and check. And this domain is also available. You can check for any domain. If you want to make like a hosting website, this is really important. So you can make a section to check for domain name availability. In this application we use an API which is called Who's XML API. You just go to this website, click on get started, and you just register for an account, and it gives you the API key. Okay, that's all you need. Now let's jump back to our computer. We make a folder. I call it domain name checker. I open the Visual Studio Code and drag and drop this folder into my Visual Code. Okay, and here I make a file. I call it index.html, and I make the basic HTML5 structure. I call it domain name checker. I give the title for this one. Okay, in order to start, we need to import a library, the JQUERY library. Okay, you need this library, the JQUERY library. Okay, and so once you have imported the JQUERY library, we can start coding. Okay, so first we have to make a structure for our application. In order to, you can see everything, I run this one with the live server, and I divide my screen into half, so you guys can see everything in real time. And this is my browser. You can see everything in here. Okay, the first thing we have to do is to make a wrapper. Inside this wrapper is my application. The first thing I'm gonna do is to make a header, and inside this header I say domain name search, and I make an I, and I put this one on it. Okay, and there it is. Okay, maybe not do that. Now it looks better. After that I make a section. So I make a section and I give it a class name of input part. Inside this section I make a paragraph with a class of info text, and after that I make another div with a class of content. This is the content. Inside this content we have two inputs, which is type is text, and I give the placeholder type domain name, and I give it an ID of my input, and I require this one. Okay, and after that I make another div with a class of separator to separate the input from the button. After that I make a button. I give it a class of btn, and I give it a type of button, and on click I want it to run a function check, which we make it later. Check domain. Let's save, and there it is. This is our application. Okay. Okay, and after that, in order to give it functionality, we have to make a JavaScript file. But before that, let's give it some design. So I make a link. I link a CSS file. I call it style.css, and I make that file style.css. I'm not gonna make a new style for this one. If you go to the MySky Power /web apps, there is a lot of application. You can use their CSS file for your projects. So in this project, let me choose a nice design. Let's see which one looks good. The weather application is really nice, and there it is. Let's run it. I want to use this style, so just right click, go to view page source, or click on source code. Just download this one. Once you have downloaded, open it, and all we need is the CSS file. Okay, we need the CSS. Let's open the CSS, and we're gonna use this CSS file. Just copy everything and paste it into your CSS and save. Now let's check, and there we go. We have a nice design is applied. Let me remove this one and save. You see, when I paste, that's a nice design I have. That's why I called this one a wrapper input. These are the classes which you use in this design, but we have to change few things. Okay, first this one, I don't want this or, so come to your CSS and search for or like this. This is the or. I remove this one. I don't want the or on my separator, and now we have a nice thing. Okay, and I need to add one more code into my CSS, which is this media, to make it mobile responsive. When the media weight is 400 pixel, it will drop the weight to 300 pixel, and that's it. There's one more thing. When I click check, my message should be displayed into something, and that's this section. You see this one, and that is what we use on our JavaScript. Okay, this design, this is also part of this weather application design. Okay, let's remove that one for now, and we have our application with structure and design. Now let's give it functionality. Here I make a JavaScript file. I call it app.js, and I have to link it with my HTML file, like a script, and app.js. Now it's linked. I come back to my app.js. Now this is the important part, because from here we give our application the functionality to search for domains availability. So in our index.html, we said if we click on this button, it will run a function called check. Now let's make that function. I call it check, and inside this function, first of all, I want to get the value of this input. That's really easy. I make a variable. I call it input value, which is equal to document.getElement by ID. And what is the ID of this element? My input. I paste it here, and from this one I want this value. Okay, I want this value. Okay, and after that, once we get the value, we have to check. I want to check for input value. If my input value length is 0, which means I didn't type anything, so I want to give the user an alert, and I say please enter domain name. And if everything is okay, I want to run this section of code. So first let's get the button text, because when user click, I want the text should change to searching. So I make a variable, I call it button text, and this is equal to document dot query selector, and I want to select button by class. And after that I need to change the text of this button when I click it. So I say my button dot inner text is equal to searching. Whenever the user click on this one, the text will be changed to searching. Let's see if I type something and the button changes. Okay, that's good. And after that we make another variable. I make a variable, I call it domain, and my domain is the name of the input field. Okay, so this is equal to my input value. And the other thing we need is another variable, which is the API key. As I told you, if you go to the JQuery API website, there it gives you the API. There it is, and there it is, the API key. All you need to do is to just copy that one, and there's my API key. There it is. I copy that one and paste it here, just like that. You have to paste your own API. Okay, and after that I want to use the Ajax. I want to use Ajax, JQuery Ajax. Okay, this is not JavaScript Ajax, this is JQuery Ajax, to make things simpler. Okay, inside this Ajax request I say my URL. My URL is equal to, this is the URL. My URL is domain availability. There it is. Just copy this URL. Okay, this is the URL you need to send your request into. And after that we have to tell the program what is our data type. So our data type is JSON. It is JSON. And after that I want to tell it what is my data. So my data is my API key. First, my API key. My API key is equal to API key, and my domain name is this domain. We send this data to this URL, and when there is success we get some data back. So we say success. When there is success, I want to run a function with parameter of data, which is the parameter which this API sends us back. And when it is back, what I want to display the data into the console first for test. So console.log the data, so you guys can see what we get. Let me make it bigger. Let me open the inspect console. You see it's more responsive. Let's search for google.com. Check domain, and there we go. The API sends us this information. As you can see, there's some data from the domain info. We get domain availability, which is unavailable, and the domain name. We're gonna use this two parameter in our code, the domain availability and the domain name. Okay, we are using those two things. You get the idea what we get back from the API. Okay, so I delete the console when there's success, because it's on searching. I have to change it back to its normal text. So what I want to do is I select my button text and I change it as inner text to check domain. Now let's see if I search for a website. When it get the data, it's back to check domain. Okay, and now I need to display that data. Okay, I have to display that data into my application. I can do that. I want to select And here, as I said before, that we have this section from our weather application. Let me paste it here. I want to display my message into this design, okay? And I'm gonna use this one inside of my JavaScript. But before doing that, I have to make a section for this one. I have to make a section to display my message. So inside our HTML file, and here I make a section, make a section, and I give it a class. I call it message here, and I come back to my app.js, and here I want to append the message to this section. How you can do that? It's actually very easy. We use JQuery. So by using $, we select that section, which is message here, and once we select that one, I want to append this section of code to it, which is what I showed you. But if I paste my code, you see there's error. We can't do it like that. We can't paste the HTML code directly with multiple lines inside JavaScript. In order to do it, instead of this quotation mark, we use backtick, which is the key before your one key on the keyboard. This is the backtick. With backtick, you can use HTML inside your JavaScript, okay? And there is my nice code. Okay, and we have to change few things in here. This is the message, which is hello. I don't want to do that. Let's see how it works. If I search for google.com, click on check domain, when it gets the result from the API, it prints this message, which is this section of code. But instead of the hello, I want to print the actual data we get. So I say the domain name. Now I have to show the domain name, which comes back from the API, as you saw on the console, which was data dot, but we can directly use the JavaScript variable inside this HTML. In order to use, we use $, and this, and inside this one we can use the variable. So from the data, which is the parameter which we get back, I want to select the domain info, and from domain info I want to select domain name. If you ask me where you get this data from, that's actually what we get from the API, okay? Let me show you. Let me save this code. If I check domain, okay, I have to, I showed you later, but let me do it again. Console.log, and I want data. If I check the google.com, I get this data from the API, which is the data is the parameter from our API which we get, and from the data we have the domain info. So we say data dot domain info, and from the domain info we want the domain name, which is this one. And if we want to get the domain availability, we just say domain info dot domain availability. Okay, that's how we get the data back from the API. So after this one, I say s dollar data dot domain info, and from domain info this time we use domain availability. Okay, domain availability, and that's the message we wanted to display. Let's save this one, and now let me run my application. I search for google.com. Let's remove this console log. I don't want to need that anymore. Google.com, check domain, and there you go, where I get the result. The domain name google.com is not available. Let me search for something else. My name is Ali. Let's check this one, and this domain is available. as much as we search, we get the result. And that's how you make an application to check for domain name availability. If you want to download the source code of this application, just go to myskypower.net/web application, and here you can run it, or you can click the source code to download the source code of this application. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you have any question, just let me know at the comment below. And if you like it, make sure to share it with your friends and press that subscribe icon.